welcome to our 4th annual conference of the strange and the unusual events in Pennsylvania. Strange, PA. I like to say I'm glad to see you people have made it here. Beautiful day for it. And we have door prizes there. There's food if you're hungry. And enjoy yourself. Our first speaker. This is his 3rd appearance here at our Strange Encounters in Pennsylvania. He is the Pennsylvania Director of MUFON, which means the Mutual UFO Network. He has written several books concerning UFOs and the paranormal. He appears on the Discovery Channel, History Channel, Science Channel. He's been on Anderson Cooper, Destination America, as well as various radio broadcasts and internet podcasts. So I'd like to introduce to you Mr. John Ventre. Not yet. Wow. He's delivering the mail.
What's the input for UFO network? What's the I heard it.
Okay, I always start off telling you a little bit about the Mutual UFO Network. MUFON started in 1969. It really started when, right before Project Blue Book ended in 1969, MUFON got together in May. Blue Book ended, I think it was October of that year. And basically it was a group to do private UFO investigations since the Air Force said they were no longer going to do the investigations. We currently have 4,000 members worldwide. The bulk are all in the United States. There might be 300 elsewhere, but the bulk are in the U.S. And about 950 investigators. You go to MUFON.com to become an investigator. The sightings, it's funny, we used to get cases about 150 a month, but now we get 500-600 a month. And when the TV show was on, Hangar 1, we were getting 600-700 cases a month, and those were a lot older cases. But when I put this presentation together in 2009, we were only getting 150 cases a month, and now it's a steady 500-600 a month. So people, I think with the television show we did in 2009 and the one we did in 14 and 15, they know who to go to now with cases, basically, and that's why we're getting more of them. Okay, this presentation is really an ancient alien presentation that I put together maybe in the 2nd season of Ancient Aliens. I said, let me put a presentation and do my own research. So that's where this presentation came from. A lot of it you've probably seen on the TV show. Some of the stuff was probably in my presentation before they showed it, but it's been on 11 years now, so I'm sure a lot of this is you've already seen. One of the things, though, and I say this very seriously, is you got to be credible in this field. I watch this show, and it's about 80% made up, Ancient Aliens. Their writers make stuff up, they give it to them to talk about, and I think this show gives us a black eye. I really do. I don't think it's credible. I put it on the other night, and you got David Wilcock there talking about Project High Jump in the Antarctic. And he said the UFOs were cutting our ships in half with lasers. I said, are you kidding me? How did you get on air and say that? And killing our troops. Project High Jump lost 3 personnel. 2 were in a plane that crashed during a blizzard, and 1 was just a guy loading the ship, and the boxes, everything fell on him, and he died. Those were the 3 casualties. There were no UFOs cutting our ships in half. And in my books, you got the information on Project High Jump. And, Nick Redfern has spoken at all 3 of my conferences, and he even says, John, this stuff they tell us to say, I won't say that. But Wilcock apparently will say anything for publicity, and to me it's embarrassing. So I put this up kind of like, it's funny, but it's really the truth. You can't keep making stuff up. And you know what I find funny too, and I can go on and on about this. The Hangar One TV show was on for 2 seasons based on MUFON's files. We had a case file for every one of everything we showed. There was a case file that went along with it. And there was some discrepancies, like some of the shows you had the wrong plane. They said Colorado Springs, Wyoming instead of Colorado. People made such a big deal out of every little thing technical they could find wrong. This show, they just make up the information in the cases. Nobody complains. It's UFO entertainment is what it is. But to me, it's why the media, politicians, nobody takes the field seriously, because I believe shows like this, so. Whatever, History Channel decided to keep this show and not the Hangar One show, even though Hangar One drew about 300,000-400,000 more people per episode, and they had the better time slot. So, and there's some stuff with that I could say, but I'm not going to say. I think we were taken down, to be honest with you. Okay, if you look at the ancient alien stuff, like President Obama said, if you built that, if you've got a business, you didn't build that. Well, if you've got these pyramids and stuff like that, we didn't build them either. So now I'll show you why. All right, one of the things I like, if you want to go back into the history, which is what this is people will ask me, well, how many types of aliens are there and how long they've been coming here and stuff. And I refer to the Air Force, because the Air Force wouldn't lie, right? Yeah. But in this case, I actually believe they were truthful. What happened was in 1968, 69, and 70, the Air Force taught a physics class in Colorado Springs to the cadets. Now, these are guys that are going to be flying our fighter planes and all of that. Chapter 33 was on UFOs. And it was a very factual chapter on the subject. So here, the highlights are, they said that the UFOs have been around for 47,000 years. I don't know why they picked 45,000 BC, but that's the date they said. Maybe they obviously got some evidence. So it's been around for 47,000 years, and 3 and maybe 4 different groups of aliens, 4 different types. So what I would say is that, if you look at cases, what do you have? You have the grays, you got the reptilians, you have the insectoids, and you have the Nordics, which are very similar to us. So that's probably the 4 that they were referring to. Yeah. This is the actual chapter. This was emailed to me such a long time ago. 1994. Some guy, Robert K. Rouse, emailed that to me. I had web TV at the time. I don't have the original anymore, but that was the original he sent me. That was the chapter. And one of the things I've been searching for is one of these physics books that actually has this chapter in there. This is just the pages from the chapter, but you can see that it says Air Force Cadet Manual, right? So it was from the Air Force. Okay, go to the next page. And you got chapter 33, Unidentified Flying Objects. It started on page 455. So there's your proof that UFOs are real. And they say 47,000 years, 3 or 4 types of creatures. But I would say there's probably more than that, because what we know now, this is 1968, NASA says there's 8.8 billion Earth-like planets alone in the Milky Way galaxy. And then there's 250 million galaxies like the Milky Way. So it could be 1 billion planets that have life on it like us. Every one of those would be a different species. There has to be differences from planet to planet, you know what I'm saying? So instead of 4, there could be, who knows, there could be 1 billion types, unless you just group them by whether they, look insect-like, reptile-like, human-like. Yeah. But this is the proof, and when you go through it, and that's again just saying the 47,000 years. One of the things is it's one of the best reads on UFOs. It goes through different cases. It talks about the 1955 Kelly Hopkins case, the one in Kentucky. The movie Signs was based on that, where they were on that farm and these creatures showed up and they were shooting at them and trying to defend their property. They talked about that case. They talked about ancient documents from India that talked about flying craft, and they gave you a lot of information about that, and then different cases, and they cited some cases out of Russia also. So there's a ton of information in this book alone. Yeah. Okay, what I'm going to show you is just some different pictures in art and history, and you make what you want of them. This is from Kosovo. It was done in 1350. You can see there's two craft there chasing each other. Other people say that's the sun and the moon going around the Earth. And, but I don't know. It looks like some sort of pod spacecraft to me with people in them. But yeah. And there's the other one. So there's some sort of humans in there chasing. This was out of Belgium. I think this was actually a wood carving and painting on a dresser, and it shows these objects, in the sky, and I think that's probably Moses or whatever with the 10 Commandments. Yeah. This one was done in 1710. This is supposed to be the birth of Jesus. Whoever painted this, I got it actually in my script. I don't want to go read every one of them, so I'm just going to ad-lib. But that's like a flying saucer and the three wise men that were there, which people say were these Nordics. But that was painted in 1710. This one's out of Georgia, over in Europe, I guess Eastern Europe, in 1600. And you see those craft in the corners. I don't know what they're painting, if they're not UFOs, what they were trying to actually show. Yeah. This one, some people say it's just a lenticular cloud because those are real, and maybe they misidentified those looking at like UFOs. But obviously, you see Jesus, etc. on. Is it a craft? Is it a lenticular cloud? This one on your right was from France in 1338. That's before they had any hot air balloons. So, whatever they had in mind there were no hot air balloons in 1338. This other one in India is a cave rock type painting, drawing. I mean, it looks like a UFO. Right? Looks like a UFO. Looks like a guy in some sort of spacesuit with a visor. I mean, I don't know what these people. Yeah, I don't know what these people would be. Yeah, I don't know what these people would be drawing, because most of the people said they drew back then what they actually seen. They weren't sci-fi paintings and drawings. They didn't do that back then. Through the years, people made paintings of fruit, of flowers. They painted what they saw. They didn't just paint conceptually. Yeah. Okay, this one is hanging in London. It was done in 1430, and what it shows, you can press. You got something in the sky that's shooting a beam of light down, and it goes through like a dove, whatever that is, and it goes through a dove. Yeah. Some people say that's a UFO. I don't know. It could be symbolism for something else. Yeah. This one is real interesting because you have a craft right here. What you got is a mothership there, and then you got these smaller ones coming out of the mothership, and this one you can see. You can press it. This is 1400s. That one was made. There's the craft. There's the mothership. There's three other craft there. And then there's a guy, like he's in the bottom, like this one here. He's with his dog, and he's looking up at the craft. I mean, that one's pretty obvious what it is.
Getting you the microphone.
Yeah.
Great.
This is in the Louvre in France. You see these things here. So either those people went to Mexico and those were sombreros that they painted. That's some sort of a UFO. And it's a lot of dome-shaped UFOs. This one was out of Nuremberg, Germany, made in 1561. When I first saw it, I said, what am I looking at? It was actually an article in their newspaper in 1561 in Nuremberg, describing an air battle, and that's what they're trying to do here is an air battle. These are UFOs, they're firing at each other, there's a crash right there. Because if you look at that, you say, what am I looking at? But there was a newspaper article on this back then.
So like right now?
Yeah, if it's working, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hello. All right.
There we go. All right. Magic.
If you have one of these, they were made by extraterrestrials. That's a Giorgio one.
These are in case the batteries might go dead in the mic. 'cause
We could
every
have
time
done
you
that.
count
You
on the
could,
pig
we
that
could
they're
have made
melting.
that.
Okay, thanks.
No, I did a conference with him. You're talking about a guy, he's got a bigger ego than me. But absolute ego to the max, that guy. Unbelievable. Yeah. All right, this one is 1608. And I think, I mean, what else could this be? There's cannon fire, you see the cannonballs hitting the water, and you see these craft coming in. Some of these paintings, they are what they are. They're not something else, you know. Okay, this one's from Romania. That's the craft right there. Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at some Middle Eastern artwork that show what look like alien life forms. You know, you could see one right there. Okay. All right, that's that same one. I mean, what are they carving, you know? Good.
What's that one on the right there, bud?
That's the same one. That's
Oh,
that
right.
guy,
Oh,
that
same
guy,
one, okay.
that's him. That's the same thing. All right, this is out of France. These coins, I think from 1656, you see a UFO on the coins. What does that say for the year there? All right, there was a year on the other one. But, you know, there you see the UFO. Yeah. All right, there's another one. All right, this one, we try to make the connection between satellites. You know, you can see the antennas, what it looks like, and satellites. Yeah. So there's a Telstar satellite. Yeah. Okay, that's an incense burner. We might be stretching this a little bit, but there's the painting, though, you know, it's got antennas on it. What could that be? Why is there antennas on a globe? You know, is it symbolizing the Earth, or was there some other communication? Yeah. And again, you see it there. Yeah. What is that? It clearly looks like antennas. There's even a little nub on the end like you'd have on the old style antennas. Nobody really can explain what that is. Yeah. All right, this is interesting. This is Michael Tellinger. This is a footprint, I think, in South Africa. I can't remember what site this is here. This could be Göbekli Tepe. These are the, they're going to come up. Yeah, go to the next one. All right. This is the Star Child. What was interesting here was where you see the eyes compared to a human. The sinus cavity, it doesn't match up. The spinal cord where it comes in is in a different location than humans. So whatever this was that was found in Mexico in the cave, very different than a human. And people say it's just a birth defect, but why would the sinus cavity and where the spinal cord comes into the brain be in a different location? You know, the eyes are very close together. It's very different find. And the problem is, when you find these, you got to find the female bones. They have the mitochondrial DNA. Males don't have that. When you have the female, you can trace it back. The male DNA, you can't do that with. Okay, this is in Peru. 3,000 years old. These skulls are elongated. They're the bone in the skull is 60% heavier than humans or Neanderthals. So Even if they strap boards to their heads, what are they trying to emulate? Obviously, they saw something, were greeted by something, and they tried to replicate that in their kids. Good. This one's interesting. This is what Giorgio wears on his lapel. It's 1,000 years old. It's from Central America. It's made of gold, and it looks like a spaceship. But it was in the Smithsonian, and until an engineer took it, made a model of it, and it actually flew. And I think what he did is put a propeller on it with a rubber band and kept turning it, and it flew. And he goes, "That's an airplane. That's not." They thought it was an insect. They thought it was a bee, you know. And it actually flew. And the other thing somebody else said, who studies bugs, is no bugs have a rudder. They don't go straight up like that. And obviously, there's where you sit, the cockpit, etc. The Smithsonian pulled that off the shelves. They used to have it on display and had little trinkets there. They don't show it anymore once we proved it was a 1,000-year-old airplane. We'll talk about the Smithsonian a little bit later. All right, these are cave paintings. You can see how old they are. Remember, if you say 4,500 BC, they're 6,500 years old, right? Because we're in 2000 AD. So you got this one in Australia, 6,000, 7,000 years old. You know, could that be a ghost? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it kind of looks like they're wearing a helmet. People in every culture, on every continent, and every time period had the same experiences. They saw the same things. So this is a very haunted planet, a very interdimensional planet, and our science can't, and they also won't explain what's going on. They just want you to go about your daily work. All right, this is from Sago Canyon in Utah, 2000 BC. I guess Columbus didn't discover America. These things did. But whatever they are, you know, they got antennas. I don't know if that's a helmet, where their eyes are. People are seeing something. Okay, here's a few more. That's not from Egypt. For some reason, this slide, that Abydos, Egypt, is on the next slide, but it showed up on this one. So I don't have good computer skills. This one is from Kiev. It's 4,000 years old. It's a guy in a suit and a helmet. All right, this is in Italy, a rock cave drawing. That's 12,000 years old. Do you remember when we were in school, let's say in the 60s, or maybe some years in the 50s, we were told at 10,000 BC we were cavemen, right? Yeah. And somewhere at 6,000 or 4,000 BC is when 6,000 years ago is when we became human looking. Well, that's not true. I mean, when you look at the stuff when you go back in history, it was supposed to be the hominids, Neanderthal, then Cro-Magnon, then us. That's when you put all the bones and everything in the timeline, and it's not true. Humans looking like us were here before the Cro-Magnon. So think about that. Cro-Magnon was from about 3,500 BC to around 15,000, 20,000 BC, somewhere in that range. But we've been here, now they're saying as long as 200,000 years looking like us. And they keep backdating us from 6,000 years ago to now. It's some people, scientists are saying, we've looked like us for 200,000 years. You know, so. But how does that explain evolution? Cro-Magnon popped up at 35,000 BC and was gone by 20,000 BC. That's not evolution. Okay, this one, that's a man in a spacesuit, Apollo or whatever it was, but this is what was found, the carving. It looks very similar, wearing a helmet. Yeah, from Ecuador. All right, this is the Abydos one. There's 5 planes in this. This is 4,600 years old. So you see a helicopter here. I mean, what does that look like to you? That looks like a helicopter to me. This is over an archway in a temple in Abydos, Egypt. This is something they say is a submarine. This is an airplane. This is an airplane. You can see the rudders on those. Helicopter. This here could be either a submarine or an airplane. But people were seeing something else back then. And we have never been told our true history on this planet yet. This is the Vendre light bulb. So in Egypt, they had a way of creating electricity and light bulbs. And the reason we know that is when you look at building those pyramids, there was no way to get light in there. There's no, if you had torches, there'd be soot on the ceiling. There's no soot in the pyramids. They tried putting mirrors to replicate it. Once you reflect light off of 2-3 mirrors, there's not enough light to do anything or see anything. They had a way of lighting the deepest part of the pyramids where they carved this stuff in the deepest chambers, and they had light bulbs. Yeah. This is from Iraq. Again, it's some sort of alien, reptilian-looking creature. This is 9,000 years old from Nepal. And if you follow this, there's creatures on it and stuff. This is out of Africa, 8,000 years old. There's the UFO. There's the helmet. I guess he was a cyclops. But, I mean, it looks like what it looks like. This is a painting out of a Dutch painting from 1660. Something in the sky. You see a face there. You see these round things. The Perry Reese map, interesting, in 1513, it shows Antarctica. It's accurate. It's Antarctica without the ice. So how did they draw that? And the admiral said he got it from, I can't remember who actually said he got it from, but they made this from older maps. So apparently somebody knew the Antarctic coastline before it had ice. And in my notes, I got how old this would have to really be to do that, you know. Somebody had to have drawn these maps.
Was that Bird?
What was that?
Was that Bird, the admiral?
No, that wasn't Bird. He went down to Antarctica, but he didn't make the map, because the map, we know we had this map in 1513. He's a Turkish explorer, Perry Reese. But yeah, hit the button. But that's interesting. How do you get that? Okay, there's the Mexican sombreros again. Or there's some sort of UFOs. This is that was out of India. This is the lizard people, 7,000 years old. So very similar to those other ones you saw out of Iraq, and I showed you earlier, some sort of lizard creatures that have been here. Interesting story, actually, with Columbus, and this is in his journal, is he was drifting. He would have ended up in Aruba. Maybe he would have preferred to end up in Aruba, but that's where he was going. Or he would have missed and ended up in Antarctica, probably would have died. But he saw a light under the water, and it went under his ship, and then it came out by land. You know, what they did was they followed the light. They turned then to the right, and they followed the light, and that's where they ended up. Otherwise, and that's in his journal, that they followed the light. It was under the water, went under the ship, and then it came out, and they turned right. Or he probably would have died. You would have never heard of him, because he would have drifted all the way down to Antarctica. Yeah. All right, this is the cover of Jacques Vallée's book, Wonders in the Sky. You see two UFOs swooping down at troops. That was supposed to be Alexander the Great's battle. When Alexander the Great was in India, there was this one river that they needed to cross, and the Indian troops were on one side, the Greek troops were on the other side. And two UFOs swooped down and startled the troops, the elephants, the horses, etc. They didn't proceed any further with India. They turned around at that point. So that's what the cover of the book is. Well, go back one. There was some other information over there. Go back one if you can. All right, forget about it.
Hold on, I got it.
It would have to be an arrow up if you got it over here. Arrow up if you have it. Oh, you got it? Okay. Okay, there was nothing else there. I just want to see if you knew how to go back. I already said what was there.
Yeah, I thought you did.
Okay, good. You passed. Very good. This is a Sumerian tablet. Yeah. And Sumerian was the first language, right? It was the first
Here's
written,
this question.
right?
Do you know the answer? Is the Sumerian text the oldest text in the world ever found?
It's the oldest
Right.
written text.
Right.
Yeah. The
Does
oldest.
that predate Enoch then, or was Enoch part of the Sumerian text? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know what year Enoch would be. Probably predates it. I don't know. You know, I would say it would have to, because this goes back 8,000 years.
Right.
The oldest religion is Hindu, and Sumerian's the oldest written text.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff we're going to talk about from India was word of mouth for about 3,000 years, but written in 1000 BC. It's written 3,000 years ago, but it goes back 6,000 years, but they didn't have a way of writing, but the Sumerians did. There's a story of Ezekiel where this was spinning, it was like a tube within a tube, and he saw faces in it, and they moved, and he went into this craft, whatever it is. And I think, wasn't Ezekiel, wasn't that found in the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yeah.
So we didn't know about that story until 1948 when they found it, and it's like additional information and original information from these scrolls. Yeah, that was in 593 BC, was Ezekiel. I'm going to have to go to my notes because I don't remember what these are called. The dopa, yeah, that stones. There you go. I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting story on this. It was in an area of Tibet, and there was a UFO crash, and these creatures got out. They're about 3 feet tall, big heads, really ugly. The local tribes people hunted them down on horse and were killing them and everything, because they were so grotesque looking. Then they finally made peace, but there's a cave there in Tibet where it's carved out like glass, like they used a laser to carve into the stone, and inside they found these stones, the Dropa stones. And I think they found the bodies in there too, some skeletons, but the legend from the local people is about this encounter. And then they made friends with them, and of course, like we always do, we mate with anything. We mated with them. I'm telling you, if green aliens show up, yeah, don't worry about it. You're going to get lucky. But we don't seem to discriminate.
The Dopa stones, they're up like 200 feet up the face of the cliff.
Yeah, it was up the face of a cliff.
How did they get there? The question was, how did they get up there and cut out these caves?
Yeah.
And there's like 200 of them, and they're just
And now the people that live there are only like 4 feet tall with large heads, blonde hair, blue eyes. And this is in China, in Tibet, between Mongolia and China. And hold on a second, don't hit them so quick. Those stones were taken to Russia at the time because it was, I guess, closer to go up to Russia. They didn't know where to take them, but they were taken to Russia. And there's grooves in the stones. They're almost like the old records, Victrola, where there's something. I think there's actually hieroglyphic writing in those grooves. Now, how do you make hieroglyphic writing in tiny groove lines? So really interesting story on the Dropa stones. It's funny. I did the first Ancient Alien Conference with Giorgio in Minnesota, and this question came up. And Giorgio knows everything. So he told half of the story. He goes, and nobody knows where they went. I said, well, they went to Russia. Well, nobody knows where they are in Russia. You couldn't ever prove him wrong. Yeah. Okay, Vamanas is out of India. And again, we don't read the Eastern information philosophy, but there's documents. The Mahabharata, the Zayan, they're written in 1000 BC, word of mouth from 6000 BC, but actually written in 1000 BC. And in them are stories, like flying carpets, are the stories of flying craft. Yeah. And they call it, the word is a Vamana is what the flying craft is. Yeah. And it's in the book. That's what it looks like. In the writings of these books, which are like 5 times the size of the Iliad and the Odyssey, they're like this thick. That's how much information is in there. They got flight manuals, they got descriptions and drawings, and engineers have taken these and made them like the other one that actually flew, and they say these things actually fly with the wings. And you think about it, there's information in there how to avoid birds, right? Because bird strikes could take our airplanes down. That's in this from 1000 BC, saying when you fly a Vimana, make sure you don't run into a flock of birds. Who would think about that in 1000 BC, that birds are going to... You would just, back then, you should be thinking, oh, I'll just kill the birds. I'll go fly into them and kill them. No, because it goes into your engines and it kills your engines, But they had all of that right. So there's a flight manual that goes with this. Yeah. Okay, the other thing, that's Mohenjo-Daro right there. And what's described in there was a nuclear battle between two of the gods that showed up in their largest spacecraft. And they talk about 60-foot craft, 300-foot craft. These craft flew. They actually describe the Nazca lines flying to Peru. That's why the Nazca lines are there as a landing strip, so they could see it from the sky. In the laws of Babylonia, and I can't think Maharaj, I can't think of his name now. He said the greatest honor was to fly in a Firmana, right? So, and the information, you can't argue the information. But what this was it. Go back. It describes a war that took place between really two races of extraterrestrials, and the one detonated an atomic bomb. Okay, and so when you go to that area now, they actually dug up and they found the bodies all huddled together. It was similar to like in Italy when they were covered with the ash. But the bones are 50 times more radioactive than they should be. Okay, and they find like the glass, the pottery, it's all vitrified, turned to glass. The sand, so it had to be, a lightning strike would do that too. If there was a lightning strike, you get that same vitrification where it turns to glass, the sand. Well, they found that there with the pottery and everything. So something happened. And the interesting thing is Oppenheimer, when he was asked, after we tested the atomic bomb and used it, Oppenheimer, was on a tour. He was up in Rochester, New York, and they asked him, what was it like to see the first atomic bomb go off? He referenced this. He referenced that as the first time we ever detonated an atomic bomb on Earth, not in White Sands, which was interesting. So they had some knowledge that you don't read in the rest of the textbooks, but they knew some stuff. Yeah. All right, this is the drawings that they made in 1923 from the texts. The wings you could see, and it actually flew. Good. Well, that's an atomic bomb, yeah. I don't know why that slide's in there, yeah. All right, then you got the stories of the Nazi UFOs. The whole thing with Hitler is really interesting. He got involved, if you think about it, what the Nazis did and their way of thinking really came from a book from I think it was 1888, called The Coming Race. It was a book about the Vril, these people that lived below Antarctica, and they used crystals, right? So, and that was their source of power. And what happened was you had the Thule Society, which was males, and the Vril Society, which was females, with Maria Orsic. They got Hitler involved in the occult, right? And this is it's all documented. So he really based his beliefs of the Aryan race was this Vril society that was under Antarctica that had this powers, and if he could get there and get that information, he would have weapons. Basically, is what he was looking for. That's why when he first came to power, he had Admiral Byrd visit Germany and give a lecture on his flyovers of Antarctica, where Admiral Byrd said there were areas where there was no ice. He saw green, and he saw that opening that you could go into.
Byrd said, so I read the report, Byrd said he saw the people came out and greeted him.
Okay.
And a lot of people were saying that was all made up. But yeah, why would he document it in his archive, in his journal? Right. It was documented. He's seen these people, and there was green grass, and he went into the cave. They let him into the cave.
And the Nazis, he totally believed this because they found some ice tunnels there that they were able to go through and continue to go through, and built a base under the ice sheet. It was I think called Unit 271. And that's where they went. They also had an agreement with Juan Perón as a fallback for World War II in Argentina and the Antarctic. And when the war was basically coming to an end, a number of the submarines, the U-ships, I almost said U-tubes, they were carrying red mercury, which was used to power the Bell project and anti-gravity. if you're fleeing for your life, heading to Antarctica, why do you have barrels of red mercury? That would be like the last thing you have, right? You have stuff you need. You don't need red mercury. But they were working on these other projects. So that's, again, you did the next one. So there's a whole separate story about the Nazi UFO program. You know, and then there's a lot of people who say, you know, this stuff you can't really dispute. Some of this is real, was UFOs. But how many of the future crashes, sightings, was really us taking that information from Project Paperclip and then working it from 1945 on. And that's one of the theories with Kecksburg is the Bell Project, right? We had 20 years to take it from 1945 to 65 and did that crash in Kecksburg. So, you know, and then, you know, when I was on the Anderson Cooper show, of course he said there's nothing, the government is incompetent, doesn't hide anything. I said, wait a minute, they hid the stealth fighter for 12 years, from 1976 to 1988, so what else do you think we have? I mean, if stealth is 1976 technology, you know we've got, at this point, we've got craft that fly with anti-gravity, I would think. Okay, this is the Nazca lines, and like I said, they described that in the Vermana, in the Indian text. This was so they could see it from the sky.
You say that's in Vermont?
That was Hammurabi. Hammurabi said it. Hammurabi. The greatest gift, whatever, was to fly on these to really Peru. Good. All right, this is another location, Lake Titicaca. You know, below this, there's ruins under the water. People have seen lights under the water, and there's the story of the Viracocha, who could walk on water. That's like their god. Yeah. I think you've seen all this stuff on Ancient Aliens. Tiwanaku, that's Peru, 1500 BC, so they built this. No seams at all. I mean, think about it. How do you build that with hand tools and they're perfect? It doesn't make any sense. No gaps. Yeah. Cusco, these are 200-ton stones, and you can't fit, there's no space between them. Yeah. And here's an interesting thing somebody came up with. The same distance from Nazca to Giza, from Nazca to Angkor Wat, Teotihuacan to Giza, Easter Island to Mohenjo-Daro, Easter Island to Giza. And if you draw a straight line, it's almost a straight line. Goes from Easter Island to Nazca to Cusco to Mali to Giza to Petra to Mohenjo-Daro to Angkor Wat. Where all of these sites are, they're on a line. They're not like here and there, they're on a straight line, which was interesting. Okay. We talked, there's the Baghdad battery. They actually had a battery. They, you know, I don't know what stuff you put in there. They can actually create a charge, you know. Maybe it's like orange juice back there and something. But you can actually create a battery charge, you know, and they figured that out. And they had a way of lighting back then. Very, you know, not bright. Maybe it was 15-watt bulbs or something. But we know that they had that. Yeah. This is the lighthouse of the Pharaohs, 280 BC. They actually built this structure. I think all that's left is the base. And they had some way of lighting up there. They had an actual lighthouse that was there in 280 BC. This is where the Tower of Babylon was in 2000 BC. That's what's left, and the stone is melted and fused. Some sort of high heat took it out. Go ahead. This was found by Greek fishermen. It's called the Antikythera computer. It's this little thing with gears and everything that was made to navigate in, it's 2,100 years old. You could see it like a Swiss watch. It had all gears. Think about that. It's 2,100 years old and they used it to navigate, you know? Yeah. Good. This is Pumapunku in Bolivia. I don't know why I showed it from above. It don't look like much. Okay, there it is. The interesting thing is to cut these out and they all fit together. That's what held it, you know, in place. You know how hard that'd be to cut those out and then cut into the next stone, and then they fit together as a way of holding them together. Okay. You can see that's what they look like there. The one is 17,000 years old. The stones are 3 times larger than Egypt, and they're 100, let's say 100 tons each. Those are actually small stones, because when we talk about some other sites, they're much larger than that. So, you know, how did we move that? They're quarried 50 miles away. Yeah. This is the one that's the most interesting one. Baalbek, Lebanon, 360 BC. Only 5%, it's like the pyramids, only 5% of Baalbek has been excavated. So 95% of it is still underground. So they had this temple, and I don't remember what they called it, the temple to the gods or something, but they take these big stones here that are 1,200 tons, 1,500 tons. The one they didn't use that's there is 1,650 tons. Let me tell you something, if you moved that 50 miles, we didn't do that. We did not move those. You didn't roll something that heavy, you know, and then you had to build up sand and roll it uphill to put it in place, and this is even bigger. You can see how big it is. We didn't do that. From 50 miles away, put it on a boat, go down the river, get it up and roll it on wood and push it with ox. Just didn't happen.
They did this stuff in Jerusalem. I just read this. They're going down deeper and deeper. You know, the city on city in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
The main foundation walls were like that. They said 4 tons apiece. 4 tons apiece. Now, I've been there. I mean,
Yeah.
how they do it.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I don't think we could have done this, not humans. I don't think we could have done it without some technology. Yeah. So let's go back to Tepe in Turkey, 10,000 BC. Yeah. Now here's an interesting question. You know, when you read and read and read and look into this, I got to make that a different color there. Giza is 4,600 years old, and it's the oldest pyramids, and they were perfect. Absolutely perfect. Then, think about this. The human-made pyramids came after that, 2,600 years old. They're all falling apart. Whoever built these did not build these. Now, what did we ever create that got worse as it went along? It didn't get better. Cars got better, cell phones got better, computers got, everything we make gets better. They don't get worse. How can the first and oldest pyramids be perfect and the best, and everyone made by man afterwards be falling apart and worse? Because we didn't build those.
Inside the pyramids, you mentioned it before, telescopes. I've been there. I want to know, how did they polish the inside of the pyramid walls smoother than glass?
Yeah,
How did they cut them accurately? I mean, I can see cutting chisel, but how do you cut that angle?
Yeah.
And just to visualize it, the size of this room is 1 block. Just think
How
about
would you
that.
move something like
How do you move
this?
something the size of this room?
It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
They had logs and donkeys.
Yeah. That's Sodom and Gomorrah, 1648. I'm joking. Because they got destroyed, right?
The pyramid that was on the right, what continent was that from?
What?
What continent was that right?
Oh, that's right in the same location, in
Oh,
that
yeah.
area, in Egypt.
In
Yeah.
Egypt.
Yeah, those are the
Okay.
ones that we built. You know, the humans tried to, you know, monkey see,
Replicate.
monkey do. We
Okay.
want to build another one, you know. All right, this, you know, the first book I wrote was on the Mayan calendar, end time prophecy, and all of that. But you had this, the Mayan king Pakal in 830 AD. Yeah.
That was the last one, wasn't it? The 10th?
Yeah, I think he was the last one. So you got this thing here, it looks like a breathing device, and they're wearing some sort of helmet, either they were scuba diving or going out in space. Yeah. And it's a little hard to see. That's the King Pakal. He's on this here. Is the engine, it's blowing smoke out. He's got his feet on the gears. This is a really cool Harley in 8030 AD. He's riding something here, you know. And that's the cover of his tomb on top. So nobody knows what it is. Here's a similar one from Istanbul, 2,500 years old. It's some sort of thing that they're riding. They saw stuff. That's what they're replicating. They saw somebody else. Yeah. The Dogon tribe, really interesting in Mali. They had the story of the Sirius star system, twin stars with a dwarf. Okay? And they knew all about it. So when the British discovered them, they told them the whole story of that. And I think it was Carl Sagan said, there's no way the Dogon tribe can have that right, tell you that's Sirius A and B, they're twin stars, and there's a dwarf star behind it that you can't even see, it's not bright enough. And then in, like, I don't know what year, 1948, 68, with our telescopes, who said, you know what, the Dogen were right. It's a twin stars with a dwarf star. How would they know that? And they have stories of people from the stars coming down. Again, Hopi, that's another one that they talk about people from the sky, star people. That's really how I got involved in UFOs. I had no interest in UFOs. And I wrote the book, a novel, on the end time prophecy. And it's similar to the one I have there on Apophis 2029, which is a novel based on, it's really an end time book based on a real asteroid. But when I read these stories, looking at end time prophecy, I said, you know, there's something to this UFO stuff. They're describing people from the stars, sky people, star people, extraterrestrials, and you see all of this stuff. That's how I got involved in UFOs. I started the research in '96 for the novel, in '98 joined MUFON to say, let me see what I can find out. And it's been 18 years of UFOs. Yeah. Here's an article from Mysterious World, who lived in America 50,000 years ago. So pretty close to what the Air Force said 47,000 years ago. Yeah. This is interesting, the Voynich manuscript. It's 600 years old in Italy. It's never been deciphered. It's not a human language. So somebody wrote this whole manuscript with drawings and words and stuff. Nobody's been able to translate that. Good. This is called the Odd Wedge, found in Romania, 20,000 BC. It was found next to the bones of a mastodon, and it's got 12 elements. It's 89% pure aluminum, and there were holes drilled in it. And it was found 20,000 years ago next to a dead mastodon. So who was here? You know, what's the real history of our planet? Yeah. This is a 300 million year old screw found in Russia in 1989, embedded in a meteorite, and it predates the dinosaurs. The thing you got to know, though, is that carbon dating is good for 30,000 years, right? Then they do radiometric dating. Radiometric dating only works if it hasn't been disturbed. If you have a hurricane, an earthquake, a flood, an asteroid strike, all the things that happen on this planet, radiometric dating doesn't work. Because once you mix everything up, the radiometric dating won't work. That's how they come up with these numbers. Well, it radiometric dated to 300, the screw was 300 million years old. But, you know, if you could tell me that area was never disturbed for 300 million years, okay. So it's not accurate. It really isn't accurate. I don't think that these things are as old as they say. So I don't think dinosaurs that were 65 million years ago got wiped out. I don't think it was that long ago, because I think it was in China, some locations, they found dinosaur bones with meat still on them, with the marrow still in it. 65 million years old and you still find meat? Not possible. These things probably, we're probably looking closer to what the religious says, 6,000 years old. I think we're looking a lot closer to that than millions of years old.
Actually, Casey mentioned that too.
Oh, Casey did?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm starting to go through his journal. This guy was phenomenal.
Well, he was one of those true seers that could see,
you
know.
know. He talked about everything we're seeing here. He said that the history, the earth was inhabited, like I was with Cousteau on the Calypso. Yeah. He had a theory that we've been here 3 generations, okay, mankind. And that's what Casey said.
3 different civilizations have lived?
Mankind, right.
But very could be.
You know, Casey said that too, that, you know, we've been visited, we have been inhabited. And he said, because how do you go from Neanderthal to humans in 100 years?
You know,
they proved it.
And you skip the Cro-Magnon part. That doesn't make sense. So, you know, probably that 200,000 years they're talking about, maybe that's the real number. But there were dinosaurs with the humans back then, 200,000 years ago. I'll go back one. You got a itchy finger there. 400 million year old gears. This is found in Russian rock. And again, that's the radiometric dating, which I really question. So do a lot of people who are smart and actually scientists in that field. Okay. All right, this I think was ours. This is Constantine used Greek fire in 653 AD. Basically, they found petroleum products that, you know, a lot of them bubble up, you know, the first oil finds, and they found out they can burn it, so they put it into something that made flamethrowers out of it. But they say it was given to them by the gods. I think we probably figured that out ourselves. They would burn the ships. 200,000-year-old stone doll was found in 1989 in Idaho, 320 feet underground. It's 200,000 years old. It's kind of like Planet of the Apes, where the doll was there before the apes and they wouldn't acknowledge it. That show, watch the old Charlton Heston Planet of the Apes. I'm telling you, the guy who wrote that or produced it was telling you our real past, right? How it's covered up and can't allow you to know the truth. There's a lot of symboling in that. Yeah. Here's a silver zinc vase found in 1851. It's 534 million years old. It was found in the quarry. Get it? Oklahoma, 312 million year old iron pot found in a coal deposit. They're digging, the coal breaks open, that's what's in it. It takes 250,000 years to create coal, minimum, 250,000 years. Compressing to create coal. Okay. Swiss watch found, I don't know if it's really a Swiss watch, but well, they say it's a Swiss watch found in a 400-year-old unopened Chinese tube. So does that tell you we go back from the future? We can go, at some point, we can go back in time? How do you find a Swiss watch from the 1600s?
Wasn't Hitler back up? Yeah. Hitler during World War II was into all this stuff. Okay?
Yeah,
that's why he went to Antarctica. That's why we chased after him. But he had the idea.
Raiders of the Lost Ark was true to an extent. He went after the Spear of Destiny, the Ark of the Covenant. He actually did go try to find all of those things because he thought they had a cult power that would give him super weapons. But that's all. It was based on truth. That movie. It's a craft. You can see it. It looks like what it is. 5,000 years old in Japan. Good.
You sure?
Good. I wish I had the button here to do this. The other controllers do. 4000 BC. This is off of Cuba. You see these pyramids, and there's the Bimini Wall is on the water there. They think, was that the Atlantis?
That's what Casey said, yeah.
Yeah, that's what
ironically, Casey gave them the direction to go there, and they found it. It's like, creepy. So.
It's interesting. 250 million year old shoe prints. This is in Utah, Texas, Nevada. You see the threads from the shoe. There's one that has a dinosaur print overlapping the shoe. So the dinosaur stepped on the shoe print. That tells you the shoe print was there before the dinosaur. The footprint. Get it? I used to laugh at giants. People say, oh, there's giants. It's like, and like I started this off, you got to be credible. I said, come on, there's giants, there's cyclops, you know what, you start researching this and you start finding there's a lot of evidence that there is. Besides what it said in the Bible about giants. I don't think that's a real picture. To me, they probably photoshopped it right about over there. But again, but here's one in 25,000 BC. This is like a 10-foot giant, that they found. They buried it with all these ornaments on it. That's from Russia. There's all kinds of stories. Here in the U.S., 1911, Love Lake, Nevada. This is the jaw of the giant. That's a human jaw, 12 feet in height, 19-inch footprint. They played in the NBA. And then all these other stories, 1833, right? 12-foot bodies. And these are from newspaper articles from the Old West. You'll find it in an article. And some people say, well, they were making that stuff up to sell the newspapers. How many of those stories were real? Well, some of them got pictures attached to them. 1856 West Virginia, 10'9", 1911. This is the Indian. They were red-headed cannibal giants with 2 rows of teeth. The Indians cornered them into a cave, and they basically suffocated them, burned them in, I should say, and they died in there. And they found all of those bones in there. 1931 Nevada, 3 skeletons, 8, 9, 10 feet tall. Yeah. Here's a picture, 1812 in Ireland, has 6 toes. Yeah. This is an article from Wisconsin, 1851. It was 7.5 to 10 feet tall. Okay. There are other stories, 1912 from Wisconsin. You can see 8 to 10 feet, double row of teeth, elongated skulls. These are all in the newspapers. 2002 National Geographic article in Greece, there was a 12 one-eyed cyclops, 12 to 15 feet tall. They found the bones and they only had one eye. So how many of those stories now are true? Odysseus, Ulysses, and fighting these cyclops. Good. This is interesting. And this guy, they found these bones, Ohio in 2011. That's what they say is a human femur. It's been sitting on the Supreme Court since 2015. They're trying to force the Smithsonian to release their documents on the evidence on giants. So he's taking it to the Supreme Court, But the only thing is with the Supreme Court, they don't have to hear the case. See, a lot of people who research this, and Brian, maybe you guys know a lot about it, they say that the Smithsonian covers it up. Like I told you, Giorgio's little bee, which turned out to be an airplane, the Smithsonian removed it from the shelves, right? And there was one of those caves in Nevada. They claimed the Smithsonian went in and dynamited it to close the cave after they found the giant bones in there. They take these things and they cover it up, is what happens. So this one's sitting on the Supreme Court, but they don't have to hear it. I'll give you an example. I think 1978 or 79, someone went through the process and sued over affirmative action. They said it violates the 14th Amendment. It's basically discrimination against white males. It's been sitting on the Supreme Court since 1978 or 79. They will not hear the case because affirmative action does discriminate and they won't rule on it. They're political. So they're not going to listen. They're not going to rule on this case. It's going to sit there until this guy's as great as us. Here's another one for a picture from this museum, 47-inch human femur. That's from the 50s. And what happens over time, these things all disappear. They go in, they buy them out, they take them, they steal them, they rough up the people. Yeah. So here's just a chart. Move that cursor for a second. That's us, 6 feet tall. That's a 12-footer. You can really see, that's 15 feet. Okay. That's the height, what these things, remember the King Kong movie was 50 feet is what they said King Kong was. Well, that's 36 feet. Look at us compared to 36. When you go up height, you increase the mass and the width and everything too. And there is physics-wise, you can only go a certain height until you're so heavy you really can't run. You'd be moving like a slug because you weigh 50,000 pounds, So there's a point where these here, like Bigfoot, let's say, are very possible, These here would be a lot harder, But then again, our bones, would probably be a foot in diameter, for our femurs. Good. Here's one from the Civil War in Mississippi. They captured a pterodactyl thunderbird. Good. This one's out of New Zealand, 25-foot wingspan. Okay, now the question is, all of my books that I write, the whole reason I got into this really was the question, is it creation, evolution, or were we genetically engineered? And you read that in all of my books. That's always been what I've been after. It's never been about aliens, ghosts, demons, Bigfoot, God. It was how did we get here? Because none of this adds up. So go into this, and this part is new. I got time? Yeah, I got time. This part is new, and it's actually in the next one. It's actually in my the new book I got coming out. Should be next week. Really on demonology, hauntings, my truth, paranormal stuff. And I'll give that presentation next year. But I was in Scotland. Remember this word. Look it up. Goetia. It's a Latin term. I was in Scotland last month. I think it was beginning of June. When I went there, I went to Rosslyn Chapel. I met with a couple of big-name paranormal investigators from Scotland. It's from the Scotland Paranormal Institute, let's say, SPI is the name of the group. Brian Allen. And he was the one I needed to talk to. It's funny how things work out, synchronicity. I had my book, I was almost done with it. I didn't quite have what I've been searching like, Harrison Ford, Raider of the Lost Ark. I've been searching for that one thing that proves the theory of the unexplained, the string theory of the unexplained. And I think I got it now, and it's in the new book. And that's the last book I'm writing. I'm done at that point. When this book comes out, I'll give the presentation next year, the last book I'm writing. All right? But I think I've got to where I want to be now. This is a Latin term. What it describes is a frequency that can control angels and fallen angels. And if you look it up, you'll find the legend that King Solomon's temple was built by controlling the fallen angels, right? And in the Ark of the Covenant is maybe not only the Ten Commandments, but what they're saying is there's a scroll that has, when you say the correct words, think of spells, right? Somebody, witchcraft, somebody wants to cast a spell. You have to say, the show, Supernatural, right? They're always casting spells. You have to be able to say the right words, and usually it has to be said a certain way. But what it really is the frequency, the tone, the resonance, and this is what Tesla was working on. The vibration causes it to happen because there are dimensions. Well, what I discovered in Rosslyn Chapel, which all the Scottish people know of this, and us Americans don't know anything about it, is that in the Rosslyn Chapel, besides the Da Vinci Code, is there are musical notes on these little tiles that go all around the top. A couple of them missing, so you don't have the whole thing. And they used to call it the devil's chord. When you play that music and you play it correctly, it's that ominous organ type music that you just feel the hair on your neck goes up, and they say it's called the devil's chord because you can attract the demonic, the fallen angels, right? So when you take this whole timeline, which I put in that book, what I'm saying, go to the next one. I don't remember these slides because they're new. So are we talking about Giorgio and Van Daniken with ancient alien theory, or are we talking about fallen angel theory, ancient deities built all of these sites? The thing I could never come up with was how powerful are angels and demons. There's very little out there written on this. And the reason I got into this was I recently experienced, it started in 2014, and it's still going on, and it kind of peaked in this last December. I had a real Exorcist movie demonic attack on me, and it's 100% true. It's what you saw in the movie, movement in the ceiling, banging, creaking, all of that stuff, poking me, and they attacked, but I repelled it through the use of Jesus Christ's name, through him. And I read another book by Joe Jordan, who's the MUFON South Korea State Country Director, where he has 400 cases of alien abduction with grays, where the people repelled it through the use of Jesus Christ or the name of who they believed in that faith, the one good guy that they believed in. Why would aliens leave? So the thing I was looking for is how strong are the demonic, right? Because I think what you see is there were UFOs. You see the cave paintings, the petroglyphs, the drawings, the models, everything that was made. But those ancient sites, why would aliens quarry stone and build rock sites? Right? They have some technology to make aluminum, metal, graphene, nuts, bolts, They're not going to quarry stone. But I think that these fallen angels were able to be seen prior to Jesus' coming, let's say. So that's the old stuff. I think they built the pyramids, they built Baalbek, and it was built for human sacrifice. I think a lot of the stories and legends, it's really fallen angels and angels, But what you read on that Goethe here is that King Solomon built King Solomon's temple, and he had that script, the way to say it. And when you research that, like I said, Tesla and a bunch of other things, you find out that this is really real. The Collins Elite, which I don't know if I told you about that last year or the year before. The CIA formed a branch called the Collins Elite to look at the occult. Then in 1952, they looked at UFOs. They concluded there are no UFOs. It's all occult demonic activity. We're dealing with angels and fallen angels. And the more you research that, it makes a lot of sense, but it's a theory nobody wants to hear about. But in the new book, I give you a ton of evidence, the timeline, how all these things now fit together, and it's not ancient alien theory. We're dealing with ancient deity theory. That's why there are stone structures that they're built. They're built for human sacrifice or to honor the gods. The cattle mutilations, Those are ways to honor, to appease the ancient deities. That's what they are. When they take the cattle, the blood, the organs, etc., and they find an empty carcass. And if you read about the Collins Elite, we're working kind of with them, thinking we can out. The CIA thinks they can outsmart these ancient deities. That's a huge mistake.
Question, John.
It's a huge
Last year you
mistake.
spoke about, remember the book, the military had for training? And then I actually got a book.
Psalm 101 or?
Well, no, it actually has a manual showing all 56 aliens that we've already uncovered.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying? And we've identified that maybe half of them are actual whatever. The other half are, I've heard this argument that they are fallen angels.
Well, yeah, and there's plenty of books out there about it, and I've read these
Yeah.
books, The Watchers, The Fallen Angels, etc. And here's my theory. See, and I want to have this debate with, there's some guys out there like Michael Heiser. He says, and Joe Jordan.
Yeah.
And I've had them on the TV show that Stan and I have done in Pittsburgh, UFOs over Pittsburgh. But they say that none of it is UFOs. I said, well, wait a minute. Why are we drawing UFOs 5,000 years ago if they didn't see them? They did see the UFOs and the people in the because when you read the religion, Satan can't see the future. He wouldn't know UFOs are coming, so UFOs had to be there. So my thoughts is we're dealing with both. UFOs do come, like the 1973 wave, right? They came across Pennsylvania, taking soil samples, human samples, animal samples. You saw craft, you saw people in uniform. Those are aliens. They're scientists that showed up for a 6-week expedition. They got what they needed and they got out of here. Those are UFOs, So I think we're doing both. I think we find we have more in common with the alien than you think, because I say they have the same issues with good and evil, which is an interdimensional, they're basically angels and demons. They're interdimensional, malevolent entities that attack. And that's what I experienced. And last night there were noises again, and I thought it was gone. That's a shame. So I'm going to have to figure out what to do now. Yeah.
The CERN collider can help you.
CERN? Well, they say CERN. Well, they see there's a whole other presentation on this. You mentioned CERN. My answer to CERN is Aleister Crowley opened that portal
He did, right.
in 1918. The first gray ever documented drawn was by an occult worshiper, Aleister Crowley. It's a gray. So are the grays aliens or are they
That's why I said
fallen?
back to Hitler. Because my
Yeah,
grandfather was
absolutely.
with Patton there, and they talked about
Yeah.
that they created something that had this portal that's documented. Everybody, and even Kennedy mentioned it in a speech. He said last year how Kennedy said they're with us, and everybody just was oblivious to what Kennedy said. And he said it.
And it's amazing how when you bring religion in, it's almost like now when you say, if you go to do a newspaper interview and you say UFOs, everybody smiles. You can't say the word UFO without getting a laugh. But try doing an interview. I sent it to my congressman who I'm friends with. I dealt with him with UPS. That was one of my jobs, congressional awareness. And we were talking a little bit because I was in the TV show, so he kind of jokes about it now. But he thinks the whole thing is ridiculous. But when you say UFOs, angels, demons, people just laugh. But I'm telling you, what's the best cover for it to make fun of it, right? That stuff is real. And I call them malevolent interdimensional entities. And that's next year's presentation. I'm going to give you the whole timeline on why that's true. But it's both. They're aliens who now have more in common with us because they deal with these same interdimensional entities that hate anything that's alive, and they attack. And I believe that they have the same problems with Satan, let's say, if you want to call them that we have. Okay. All right, well, those are my books. You don't see the new one yet. All right, buy the books as a holiday gift, yeah, and I think that's it. I don't have the new book out yet. It's actually being put out this weekend. Richard Lang's working on it. But any questions? I did want to mention I got some cards here for our conference, the Pittsburgh conference. It's going to be at the Ramada Inn now on Route 30 in Greensburg, not at WCCC College. They moved it. Stanton Friedman's going to be there. It's probably the last time he's coming because he's 83 years old. Kathleen Martin will be there. And get this, we got the county commissioner, former county commissioner of Allegheny County, the guy who got all the funding for the stadiums, for the convention center. You know what he's talking about? The demon of Brownsville Road, the house he lived in. So what benefit is it to him to talk about a haunted house and the attacks upon him, which were much worse than what I'm going to tell you next year has happened to me, the former county commissioner? So some people have the guts to come out and say it, most don't, you know. Any questions on anything? Okay, look for the new book called The Ufologist, The Haunting of John Ventre. But it goes into all this other stuff that we just concluded with. Well, I gotta give this mic back. I like it. I'm gonna walk around town and use it on dates and stuff.